Now I'll be doing you the first poem written by Ruskin Bond, and the poem's name is Granny's Tree Climbing, or Granny Climbs the Tree. So in this poem there is a boy who is the grandson, and his father's mother is the grandmother who is very fond of climbing trees. And this poem describes about her bravery and the way she faced people and successfully gets a house on top of a tree. So, my grandmother was genius. You'd like to know why? He tells his grandmother is genius. And of course, we want the reason why she is so genius. Because she could climb trees. Why? Because she could climb trees, spreading or high. This is a spreading tree, branches everywhere. And this is a very high tree, like coconut. So she could climb all kinds of trees, whether it is very long or it is very tall. She could climb all kinds of trees. She'd be up their branches in a trice. Trice means very quickly. So if this is the tree, within no time she would have climbed and she would have sat over there. And mind you, when last she climbed a tree, she was 62. So, when was the last time she had climbed the tree? 62 years. Ever since childhood, she'd this gift for being happier in a tree than a lift. So, from childhood, she had this gift. See, very few people can climb trees, and that too being a girl, it was definitely a gift for her. Gift by the God. For being happier in a tree than in a lift. Of course, how long can you live in a lift? Maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, okay, 1 day, but how long can you live? You have to get out of it. But on top of a tree, you can stay forever. Then again, that climbing trees should stop when one grew old, and that growing old should be done about gracefully. See, at that time, when the grandmother was a young girl, it was very, very unauspicious for girls to be very brave like boys. These days, girls and boys are almost, treated in the same manner, but at those times, men were given a special status and women were given a very inferior status. And this grandmother used to climb trees. Even many men don't do it. So, climbing trees should be stopped when one grew old. This is what everybody used to tell her. Who all would tell her? Maybe her parents would tell her, and then her relatives would tell her friends would tell her grandmother would have also told her. Then the whole society, neighborhood, all the people near and dear her would have told her, thinking that this might affect your future life, so please don't climb trees and be graceful. Graceful means respectable. Something which can be equated to respect, honor. She'd laugh and say, well, I'll grow old disgracefully. I can do it better. So she was like, my life will definitely be better. For me, my happiness is important. I'm happy to grow old disgracefully. See, graceful and disgraceful is very individualistic. Society has no role to play in one's happiness. She was happy the way she was, and she was happy being disgraceful. For her, that was the greatest graceful thing. For in all the garden there wasn't a tree she hadn't been up at one time or another, having learned to climb from a loving brother when she was 6, but it was feared by all that one day should have a terrible fall. The outcome was different. While we were in town, she climbed a tree and couldn't come down, and we went to rescue, And then the doctor took Granny's temperature and said, I strongly recommend a quiet, weak bed. He sighed with relief and tucked her up well. So, this grandmother finally gets married, she has children, and everything happens. So, after some years, she'll also be old, she'll have children, grandchildren, so she'll be living in their house. For in the garden there wasn't a tree. So they had a house, they had a garden near their house, but in the garden there wasn't a tree, there was no tree at all. So grandmother was very disappointed. She hadn't been up for many years, she had not climbed up at one time or the other. So this grandmother had learned to climb from her loving brother when she was 6 years old. But it was feared by all. See, her brother taught his loving sister how to climb a tree, but the whole world was afraid of it because she was a girl. The outcome was different while we're in the town. So her son, her grandchildren would have gone to the town for a very important work or something like that, and then this grandmother, what she does is, she'll be like, this is an excellent chance and I'll take an opportunity of it to climb the tree. So what she does, she climbs a tree. That one day she would have a terrible fall. The outcome was different while we were in the town. She climbed a tree and couldn't come down. So what happened is, the grandmother climbs a tree, but she doesn't fall, but she could not come down. Climbing up was easy, but climbing down becomes difficult for the grandmother, so she stays there. She climbed a tree and couldn't come down. We went to rescue, and then the doctor took Granny's temperature and said, so grandmother was there on top of a tree for a very long time. Maybe they would have come the next day, so the whole night grandmother would have been on top of a tree. That too with a, grand old people can't even walk properly, they need a stick to walk. Whereas this grandmother has climbed on top of a tree and now she couldn't climb down at all. And she did not know what to do. She could have had a fall and injured severely. So her son and grandson will come, and the doctor also took her temperature and told, I strongly recommend a quiet week of bed. Week means 7 days. So for 7 days, please take bed rest and don't do anything. So this is what the doctor tells. We sighed with relief and tucked her up well. So these people took a sigh. Sigh means a very deep breath which someone takes when he comes out of pain or when a person is in pain. So they tucked her up well on the bed. Poor Granny, for her it was like a brief season of hell. So this grandmother had to take a bed rest. It was like a brief season of hell. Brief season is a metaphor. Metaphor means, I'll give you an example. If you tell, this girl looks like a lotus, it is simile. You are comparing her like a lotus. This girl is a lotus is metaphor. You are telling this is not a girl, but this is a lotus. You can compare that girl so strongly to a lotus that a lotus and the girl have no difference. So that is a metaphor. This was a brief season of hell, because there is no like or as. So it is metaphor. Confined to her bedroom, while every breeze whispered of summer and dancing leaves. So grandmother loves nature, she loves trees. So 1 week she had to be on the bed. It was a very, very bad time for her. It was like hell. She was confined to her bedroom, and every time she would hear the breeze from the windows, she would really feel very, very unhappy because the leaves whispered in the summer. But she held her peace till she felt stronger. So she was patient enough till she felt stronger, then sat up and said, I lie here no longer. So some days she slept on the bed, and then with all her patience, one day it broke out in form of a demand, and she said, I lie here no longer. I don't want to be here. And she called for my father and told him undaunted. Undaunted means this is what it is. After this, whether you do or not, I will be doing that only. There is no option. So that's what she tells here, that a house in a treetop was what she now wanted. My dad knew his duties. He said, "That's all right. You will have what you want, dear. I shall start work tonight. With my expert assistance, he soon finished the shore." So the grandmother demanded a house on top of a tree. She wanted to stay there. So he was like, "Okay, Mama, you're my dear mother. I'll definitely fulfill your wishes." And they build a tree, and they build a house on top of a tree. See how beautiful this is. I think everybody should have a house like this. That the house on in the tree top was what she now wanted. My dad knew his duties. He said, "That's all right. You will have what you want, dear. I'll start work tonight." So he started work with the son's assistance. He soon finished the shore. The great task was done. Made her a house with the windows and door. You can see the windows. These are the windows, and this is the door. So he finally completed the job. Good son, good grandson, and a great grandmother.